is a large donation, to University of Pennsylvania to begin a lab, to establish a lab on nanotechnology research that will bear his name. And this is a large award, millions and millions. So, just to close, I'm truly delighted to introduce somebody who by any measure is an icon of high achievements and a very dear friend of mine, very, very dear friend of mine. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Singh.
All yours. Well, let me first tell you, Lakshman tells the truth, but embellishes it. It's given me a lot of headgear. Frankly, I consider myself a product, a real product of rural India. People ask me where do you belong. I say, the rural. Can you hear me? No.
You're close.
I grew up in Gorakhia, Virai, and Gorakhia is an archetypical rural India. People are largely farmers. And I tell people that I have lived through 15 centuries in my lifetime. And early transportation was on a bullock cart. So it's a movement from horseback and bullock carts to private planes. That's about 14 centuries. I would also say that I have had probably the most fortunate circumstances given to me by God. Growing up in an innocent place that was not touched by modernity and was basically a place where there was nothing else to do if you did not read. In my childhood, all I did was read. There was really nothing else to do. And the social environment was so wonderful. There was none of the social light that you see in the West. Family was strong. If somebody was down, the rest of the family would help. The great things that characterize India, rural India, was all around me. And I think that values all of us. And I would say that not only are we brothers and sisters, we have similar life experiences. What you hear from me is very largely your own life. There may be slight variations, but by and large, we have lived the same lives together. And I consider myself blessed because there was no television, there was no distraction, and you knew what you wanted to do. Most of us knew what we wanted to do. We wanted to see the wider world and see what we can do in the bigger, wider world. I had the good fortune of going to a college in Bihar. At the time it was Bihar, St. Xavier's College in Ranchi. That probably had the most significant effect on my life. I was about 14 years old when I went there. But it was a great place to go because I met for the first time many Europeans. They were the Jesuits who were teaching me. And one of them, his name was Kamil Bulki. You might know him. He was a Hungarian. And he spoke Sanskrit. He was actually department chair of Sanskrit at St. Xavier's College. Now, one of my passions in early childhood was to learn Sanskrit. And that was my connection to my forebears. So I was trying very hard to become fluent in Sanskrit. When I met him, I followed him to his apartment. And I said I wanted to learn Sanskrit. He was amazed. So he began to give me private lessons. I already knew something, enough to haltingly speak. But he started to give me private lessons. He would give me books to read, old classical books. That's from him I got the book by Kalidas, Abhigyan Shakuntalam, Meghdut, these books. He gave me the Sanskrit version. And I would go, I take it to my dormitory, read it, I come back 2 weeks later, and then we'll talk about it. And he eventually, as he became comfortable, he talked to me about different things. And one day, I asked him, I said, tell me about my country. He said, that's my country too. He had become an Indian national. He says, my country too. I tell you things that I great here, you know them already. There's a great social structure. He said, well, there are a few things that are bad. And when you grow up, you can maybe try to help fix it. So he tells me, he said, the first thing is the jati system. Those were his words, spoken in Sanskrit. So he would refuse to talk to me in Hindi. So he said, jati system. He said, you know what they did to India? He said, first understand that it's been here in this land for over 3,000 years. No other social structure in the world has survived that long as it has in this country. He said, you also know that Indians always lost every war. He said they have never won a single war. That's not because they're cowards. He said that's because of the jati system, he said. He said that across from the Himalayas was the town of Ghazni in Afghanistan, had a population of 60,000. Punjab had a population of a few million. And when the army would come from Ghazni, 60,000, the town of 60,000 had an army of 40,000 because everybody fought. The whole society was militarized. He said in India, only the Rajputs could fight. So in a town of 200,000 people, they had 5,000 soldiers. So he said India always fielded, Indian armies always fielded smaller armies than the invaders. So when Porus was in charge of Punjab, and Alexander attacked, the Greek army was bigger than his army. He said, you look through history, you will see it. He said the reason was that everybody was placed in a class. You could not fight if you were not the Rajput. He said that today, modern India, is the same problem. The society has to get together, it has to get rid of these poor structures from centuries ago. That's how it would practice. And from that point on, I became an anti-jati person. I have been that way all my life. He also said that socialism was bad for the country because it takes away private initiatives. Now remember, this was the time when Mr. Nehru was Prime Minister and the economy was largely socialist. And of course, he inveighed against corruption in the society. So these were his counsel. And I tell you, I follow them to this day. Our company does business all over the world, just about every continent. And some places are as corrupt as any land on earth. And actually, I'm going to Ukraine in 2 days. It's one of those platinum card holders of corruption. Yet, our people are prohibited, absolutely forbidden, to engage in any activity that will snap or grab for corruption. We have a rule we follow. We have opened an office in India, in Pune. After many years of reluctance because of corruption, we finally opened an office, and the same rule will apply. Project International won't give you a dime for anything. And this all I trace back to Tamil Bolke. I was 14, 15 years old, and I listened to him as my mentor. He passed away. I think he got Southern Revolution from the Indian government before he passed away. But he certainly had a huge effect on me. After St. Xavier's, I went to Sindri, when I realized that studying physics would not make for a good living. That's right. So I went to, after some vacillation, I went to Sindri. And that was another great fortune. Because Sindri was like going to a seminary. Now they have co-eds, she tells me, which is wonderful today. In our time, there was no co-ed. It was away from a very urban setting. It was really an ashram, if you will, and the teachers were excellent. Actually, you taught there, didn't you at the time? Yes. It was a great place. It was a good place for education. I can tell you today, a degree from Penn that I received in 1972 is a necessary union card. It was a necessary union card to be accepted in the upper echelons of business in this country, no question. I said I had a degree from the Sindri, they would show me the door. So it was certainly getting a degree from an Ivy League university opened the doors early in my career. But the knowledge that I use in running the industry today was largely acquired at Sindri. No question about it. The education at Penn was to become a scientist. Lots of courses, applied mathematics, something that doesn't leave you. I still can't stop myself from writing papers. But it is the real education in engineering. I truly received that at Sindri. And I go back, sometimes I reflect back, as I deal with physical problems in the real world. So where did I learn this? Well, I learned that in that little place, 7,000 miles away. That is where I learned it. So I am deeply grateful to Sindri, like all of us are and all of us should be. Because we are Indians, we have the right to be perpetually pessimistic. We always do. We always do. We realize that you were taught when you were 6 years old that the golden age is gone. Now we are in Kali Yuga, right? That goes right to your bone marrow. The great days are over. So of course you have an absolute birthright to be pessimistic. Kali Yuga, right? Yes. And that's how we are conditioned. But the truth of the matter is that India has great potential. And India is continuing to rise as a country. Corruption is not endemic to us. I, by the way, think corruption is the greatest force holding back any society anywhere. And corruption is not intrinsic to India. It came to India through conquest that took place in 7th, 8th century. People don't realize that. A Chinese traveler booked. There were two famous Chinese travelers. One of them, the second one, who came to India in the 5th century. He wrote that he went through the country. He had basically diamonds and precious metals that he would sell to get money in local currency to travel around the country. And he said one time he was someplace in eastern India, I'm not sure if it was Bihar, but he took a bath by a well, and then in the morning, and then he walked away from the well and left his treasure, his entire life earnings that he was going to use to travel behind by the well. And he realized about 3 hours later that he had no money now. So he began to walk back, of course petrified that now he would become a beggar. And came from the other side was running a shepherd who left his sheep behind and was carrying his treasure, looking for him. And he said, we realized in the village that it must be yours, so I've been asked to find you and give you your treasure back. That was India in the 5th century. Honesty, it was expected of everyone. And I think the country will be that way again. We just have to continue to make the effort to improve in the ways we can. And it will. I carry with me a huge sense of guilt. I gave University of Pennsylvania $20 million to build the Center for Nanotechnology. I did that again as an act of gratitude to the university, and I think that people who support you, you should support them. I consider myself a child of charity. I've always lived off of charity of others, so it was time to give it back. That was good, but my debt to India is even greater, and in proportion I haven't done nearly as much. So yes, in the coming years, my hope is to do the right thing by the mother country as well. My wife is listening to you, listening to me, and I should tell you that she has been an inspiration in all of this. She has never stood in the way of giving charitably to whatever causes that I have thought to be worthy to give. Now, I would, instead of giving you a monologue any further, I would ask you to ask questions. I think that way it will be more lively. My life is no more interesting than any one of yours, but I thought that it will resonate with you because you very much have lived the same life journey, all of us here. Yes, please.
Can you very briefly tell us what your company does?
Oh,
For the
okay.
others who are not very knowledgeable about it.
Sure. The company is called Holtec International. Holtec stands for Holistic Technologies. The reason we started as Holistic Technologies is because I thought at that time, this was back in the mid-80s, there was no nuclear power plant construction going on, no new plants, and the business would be entirely looking after the existing plants. So you holistic treatment, you don't get ill again. So you fix problems. I also wanted a name that was not in a particular business. So if need be, we can move on to other areas. The company originated in 1986 as developed a couple of, I would say, clever ideas to increase the storage capacity of spent fuel in fuel pools, nuclear power plants. And that was the beginning of it. I started it to primarily provide the new technology of spent fuel racks, they call them. And I tell you in this context, I tell you and your children, the most important thing, if you want to be financially successful in this society, become an entrepreneur. Okay? There's nobody who will pay you enough for what you're worth unless you unleash your own energy, your own drive. I came to that conclusion in pretty much by the time I had graduated from college. And I should tell you, by the way, Kiran, Lakshman's wife, she did provide me the only connection to India in those years when I had come here as a single 20-year-old. She did ply me with excellent meals, and Lakshman kept me connected with India in a way only another brother would. And I have always looked at him that way all these years. And he, in a way, was an inspiration behind starting Holtec also. The company grew with time, and I did take risks. I asked my wife, we had at the time, our net worth was about $1.5 million. I said, we may be worth nothing in 6 months. And she said, that will be all right. If she said no, then there will be no Holtec today. In the first year of business, I had obligations, letters of credit, worth about $30 million. And my net worth was $1.5 million. Wow. So clearly, it was a pivot point. If any one of those projects had gone negative, we would be back on the streets. So yes, you have to take risks. You have to step out and see what you can do. See what you can do. Those who do it, if you don't, you'll never know what you can do. And I ask all of our compatriots to become entrepreneurs. That's the only ticket to material success in America. Holtec International, I'm giving him a long answer, or pardon me, but let me. Holtec International subsequently went into dry storage of spent fuel, and now we store spent fuel for 67 nuclear plants around the world. In Europe, Asia, United States, North America, including Mexico, South America, we have contracts all over the world. More recently, I have started to develop a small modular reactor. Fortunately, we're not in reactor development business, but of course, craziness doesn't stop you getting crazy all your life. You're not going to change your stripes when you're 65 years old. So I did start 3 years ago. I started a small modular reactor development program. The reactor is an entirely different safety platform than any reactor that exists today. And I like to tell people in non-technical people, all the people, is the fundamental requirement for a new reactor today is that it should be as threatening to you, the neighbor, and the chocolate factory.